It's great to have Alison Guggenheim from Lentin Smith, who are letting agents actually right in the centre of town here. Great to have you here, Alison.
Thanks for inviting me, Alex.
Getting straight to the heart of it, I suppose you often come across and you hear on the grapevine that estate agents and letting agents, they're all tarnished with a similar sort of brush. They're not very reputable. They're sort of, dare I say at times, sort of lazy. I dare say you feel that that's a fairly unjustified comment. How do yourself and Lentin Smith sort of fit within that context?
Okay, well, I think it's simply because those particular agents just aren't doing their job properly. There's a lot of different aspects to lettings and property management, and what you need is an experienced team of property managers in place to deal with the complex legal and compliance issues that you face, and also people who've got robust systems in place to minimise any issues you may encounter through your tenancies. As a firm, as a business, we take a very proactive approach to problem solving and try and help both landlords and tenants through our experiences that we've built up over 50 years now of property management, and to help them through the difficult times.
As a landlord, what do you actually need to look for in a letting agent? What are the, I suppose, issues that they could come across, and what do they actually need to prepare? Say they've got a property and they want to get it onto the market. What do they need to be mindful of?
Okay, well, legally, to advertise your property, you need an energy performance certificate, an annual landlord gas safety certificate to make sure all your gas appliances are safe, a check of your electrics, again, just to make sure that you're not putting anybody at risk, there's no harm or anything there, and obviously insurance for the landlord's building.
How can you ensure as a landlord, how do you find the right tenant on the right basis, I suppose, quickly? Because you don't want a property sitting there idle for so much time.
No.
What are the things you actually need to get right as a landlord to make sure you get that right tenant in place?
Absolutely. It's very unusual, really, for any property that is correctly marketed to have any kind of void period in Harrogate now. The tenant demand is growing month by month, and we are seeing a massive shortage of all sorts of houses within the Harrogate area. So really, to make sure that you don't get this void period, you need to basically present your property in the best possible way, and by that I mean make sure it's clean and tidy. Any external areas, any gardens are well presented, and that it's obviously clean inside and well decorated, because you want these people to treat it as a home. And if you're expecting them to move in with substandard accommodation, quite honestly, they're not going to treat it as you would want them to treat it, and it will lead to further problems down the line.
So it's almost having it in, if you like, show home type.
Absolutely.
Standard.
Yes.
And I'm assuming, sort of, does it matter whether it's furnished or unfurnished? Is there a preference where we are at the moment, or?
I think generally it's easier to let properties which are unfurnished, and then perhaps to have an agreement where you may be willing to provide one or two pieces of furniture if required. It depends if you're talking about a big detached family home or a small bed sit or a two-bed new starter home, something like that. But generally it's better to let the properties unfurnished, and then as a landlord you don't have that issue at the end of the tenancy where your family heirlooms or items of high value have been left in the property and perhaps have been slightly marked or damaged, or just general wear and tear. An issue.
Bit of a hot topic, but Menwith Hill, the number of employees there, I gather, and everyone sort of understands, they're all going back to the States, and they were a massive driving force behind the sort of the lettings market. Have you noticed much of an impact on that at the moment?
Yeah, certainly the last 18 months, the decrease in the number of Menwith Hill workers has had a big impact on the certainly the luxury end of the Harrogate housing market, and I think that's particularly come through in perhaps sort of the upper end of the two-bed apartment rates. We're seeing they're certainly coming down slightly in price, and there's less demand for those at the moment.
Okay, and then I suppose on the flip side, if I'm a tenant and I'm actively looking, how can I suppose, put myself into the best position so that Alison knows about me and I'm going to find that great property to rent out? What do I need to do from my tenancy perspective?
Okay, you need to make sure that you can move quickly, and when you go to a viewing, if you're happy with it, that you're in a position to decide quickly.
So because there and then, do you mean you can strike a deal literally on the doormat?
Strike a deal, yes, or certainly within 24 hours. At the end of the day, it's not our decision who gets to let the properties, it's always the landlord. So we have to get as much information as possible to give to the landlord after the viewing for him or her to make that decision. But that, if we feel that person is the right person for the property, then let's close the deal.
And does it matter about credit reference and that side of things? So again, if you're a tenant and prior to going down the route with yourselves and finding a property, you almost want to go on one of these websites and sort of do all the background checks and make sure that's all in line. I guess, do you look into that nowadays as well?
Yes, before anybody can move into a property, we'll do a full credit reference check on them, which will include employment checks, salary checks, previous landlord reference, credit reference as well. So anything that could come up, you're much better to be honest and upfront about that at your viewing, because it's not something we would look brightly on if it comes out at a later date, once the fees been paid and it's off the market.
And do you find, do most letting agents do that? Is that the standard out there, doing that number of checks?
It is the standard now, yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Fine. How do you get around it? You hear scaremongery, albeit that, the tenant abuses the property, they paint the walls all black, for example. What do you do from a letting agent perspective, and indeed a landlord perspective, to sort of mitigate that, to ensure that doesn't happen, or there are no real guarantees? What can you do?
Well, firstly, I think I can reassure your listeners that it happens very rarely in Harrogate. We've got very good properties and very good tenants and very good landlords on the whole. And where there is accidental damage or what we would class as excessive wear and tear during the tenancy, most tenants are happy to contribute towards the cost of repairing or replacing that at the end of the tenancy. It's really important that landlords and agents do make regular inspections of the property, so any issues that may come to light you can deal with effectively at the beginning of the tenancy rather than at the end of the tenancy. And we lodge all our deposits through the deposit protection scheme.
I was going to ask about that. How does that actually work? Because this is relatively new, all of the deposit schemes and that sort of things. Right. Just to fill everyone in on this and what it is.
So the deposit protection scheme, or the DPS, is a government-backed scheme where an agent or a landlord taking a deposit is required to lodge that deposit within 30 days of the start of the tenancy. What a good agent will do is they will go round at the start of the tenancy before they hand the keys over and make a full written and photographic inventory of all the items in the house and the condition at the time the tenants make that commitment to sign the tenancy agreement. That then stands as the benchmark to assess any wear and tear or damage or dilapidations at the end of the tenancy, when another inventory is undertaken with the photographs, and you can compare photographic evidence on the table to see
and resolve it.
Absolutely. There are occasions where it isn't possible to agree the retentions and the dilapidations, and at that stage, unfortunately, it has to go through the DPS adjudication process.
So it gets a bit more legal in that case, but then it actually goes through the government scheme for them to resolve.
That's right. At the end of the day, the DPS actually hold the tenant's deposit, so the tenant doesn't need to worry that it's held with the agent or the landlord. So the idea is that they can take increased sort of confidence that their money is being held by a third party.
Is there any sort of major or significant difference, I suppose, from a tenant's viewpoint, that if the property that they're in is managed either by you as the letting agent, or indeed it's, I suppose, managed privately by the landlords, are there things from a tenant's point of view that you should be mindful of when entering into an agreement, or because of, again, these government schemes, it doesn't really necessarily matter nowadays?
I think if you're renting from a private landlord, always check where he's going to lodge your deposit and make sure you get the appropriate paperwork so you know where that money's held, and make sure that obviously you're renting from someone that you feel you can get along with, perhaps someone that's local or has local contacts in place. So if you've got a repair, you're not dealing perhaps with an overseas landlord that it may take 2 or 3 days to get in touch with, and you make sure that obviously your repairs can be actioned promptly.
There are some very significant organisations really that are sort of specialists in the letting side of things. I know you've got sort of 2-3 offices locally. Where do you feel that Lentin Smith adds value or does something that's different in comparison to the bigger sort of setups, if you like?
Well, as a business, we're set up and run by landlords and a very experienced team of property managers, and we are independent, and we do offer a very specialised property management service. We're extremely proud of what we've built up over the last 8 years, and we continue to grow and expand really on the recommendation of our landlords. So I think that speaks volumes for the way we operate. Yeah, and I'd just like to stress that we are local people who know the market, and as a business we've invested in technology to be able to offer our landlords and clients a login portal to access their property information 24/7, which obviously helps them at that awful time of year when you have to do your tax returns or any other accounting information you need to do. We offer wide-angle photography, a 360-degree virtual tours and floor plans on all our properties now. So I think my other tip for landlords when they're marketing their property is also to make sure that the agent has time to do a thorough market appraisal of your property, make sure you've got the best photographs and it's presented in the best light. And also my advice would be, don't necessarily go with the agent who thinks he can get you the best price. Sometimes it's that time it takes by holding on to that final £25, whatever it is you're looking for, that will eat into your costs because you've got a longer void period. And sometimes it's those tenants who feel they are paying top dollar on their rent will demand everything to be 100% perfect in their property 100% of the time, which may cost you more in the long run with monthly repair bills.
Now, I have to say from my experience, I think certainly the marketing side of things, so many letting agents just don't even bother doing sort of floor plans, and it can be sort of infuriating if you're trying to point in my instance, a client in the right direction. I suppose I always like to finish on this, and I suppose you've got the luxurious position, some would argue, that you're seeing a lot of properties day in, day out. You must have a couple of funny stories up your sleeve that have happened in your career. Do share.
Well, it never ceases to amaze me how many tenants and people will open the door with no clothes on. It's not something I do, but there's a lot of people out there who don't seem to mind.
And they've just been caught out.
Yes, not that they've been too embarrassed.
It does happen. And just remind everyone, Alison, if they wanted to sort of touch base with you, what's the best number to reach you on?
Absolutely. Feel free to call me at the office. It's 01423 817777, or you can contact us via our website, which is www.lentinsmith.co.uk.
That's great, Alison. Really appreciate your time, and thank you for coming in.